Today, we're pulling back the curtain on OpenAI and the incredible AI that's powering Chat GPT. All right, let's get right into it. Chances are you've used Chat GPT for something, right? Maybe to help with an email, find a recipe, who knows, maybe even write a poem. But today, we're going way beyond that little chat box. We're gonna really dig into the technology, the wild story of the company that built it, and some of the massive questions it's forcing all of us to ask. So to really get a handle on OpenAI, you have to start with the thing that put them on the map. I'm talking about the product that made AI a household name pretty much overnight. Okay, so what is ChatGPT? Well, at its heart, it's a generative pre-trained transformer. That's the GPT part. It's built on what's called a large language model. You can just think of that model like a giant brain that's basically read a huge chunk of the internet. All of that reading is what lets it see patterns, figure out what you're asking, and come up with those responses that sound so human. But how does it actually do that? I mean, how does a machine go from a massive pile of data to writing a poem that rhymes? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the engine that makes it all work. The absolute game changer here is something called a transformer. See, before this came along in 2017, older AIs really struggled. They'd read text word by word, and they'd often get lost in a long sentence. But the transformer changed everything. It can look at the entire prompt all at once, figuring out how every word relates to every other word. That ability to see the whole picture, that was the big breakthrough. So when you type something in, it's not just magic. There's a 4-step process happening in a split second. First, your sentence gets chopped up into pieces called tokens. Next, those tokens are converted into numbers, vectors really, that capture their meaning. Then, the real heavy lifting happens in the transformer blocks, where the model figures out the context of what you said. And finally, and this is the crazy part, it just predicts the single most likely word to come next. It does that again and again, building its response one word at a time. Okay, so the secret sauce that makes all this work is a mechanism called self-attention. And the best way to wrap your head around it is to imagine a super fast internal web search. For every word you type, the AI sends out a query. It then looks at the keys, which are kind of like the headlines for all the other words, to see which ones are the most relevant. And then it grabs the value, the actual meaning, from those important words to build its understanding. It's doing this constantly for every single word. So that's the tech. Pretty wild, right? But what about the company that actually built this stuff? Let's zoom out a bit, because believe me, the story of OpenAI is just as complicated and fascinating as its own code. OpenAI didn't start out as a corporate giant. Back in 2015, it was founded as a nonprofit research lab by some of the biggest names in tech who were actually worried about AI getting out of control. But they hit a huge roadblock. This kind of research costs an astronomical amount of money. So in 2019, they made a really controversial move and restructured into this unique capped profit company. And that one decision basically changed everything. And right there, you have this central conflict at the heart of OpenAI. You've got this original mission, right, to be an open, collaborative lab building AI for all of humanity. But then you have the current reality, a super competitive commercial business that has to generate massive returns for its investors like Microsoft. That tension is everything. And yeah, ChatGPT is the star of the show, but don't think for a second that's all they do. OpenAI's ambitions are way bigger. They've got DALL-E 3, which can create incredible images just from you describing them. They have Whisper, which can transcribe spoken words. They've even got tools that help developers write code. They're not just building a chatbot, they're trying to build the entire AI toolkit for the future. All right, this brings us to the final and, honestly, the most important part of this whole story. We have to talk about the massive impact this is having on society and the incredibly difficult ethical tightrope that OpenAI and really the entire tech industry is now trying to walk. I mean, listen to their official mission. It's huge, it's noble. The goal isn't just to build powerful AI. It's to make sure that when we finally create artificial general intelligence, AI that's smarter than humans, it actually benefits all of us. Sounds great, right? But here's the thing. A really fascinating safety study they did with a major rival, a lab called Anthropic, showed just how hard that mission is to live up to. They basically stress tested each other's AI models, and what they found, well, it was pretty concerning. The study pointed out 2 huge and weirdly human flaws. The first one is called hallucination. This is where the AI just flat out invents things but states them with total confidence, like they're facts. The other is sycophancy. And this is where the AI, in an attempt to be helpful, will start to agree with the user's bad or even dangerous ideas. It's a kind of digital people-pleasing that can go very wrong. And this chart really gets to the heart of the problem. What the researchers found was that Anthropic's AI was more cautious. A lot of the time, if it didn't know an answer, it would just say so. OpenAI's models, on the other hand, tried to be more helpful, but that meant they were also more likely to just make stuff up. And that is the fundamental dilemma for every single one of these companies. Do you make your AI cautious but maybe less useful? Or do you make it more helpful but run the risk of it being confidently wrong? It's a huge trade-off with no easy answer. And look, this isn't just outside critics saying this. One of OpenAI's own co-founders, Wojciech Zaramba, warned about this exact thing. He talked about this potential dystopian future where we have AI that can solve these incredibly complex scientific problems, but at the same time, it's causing huge societal problems. That's a scary thought coming from someone who helped build it. So all of this leads to these 4 massive ethical hurdles that the entire industry now has to figure out. It's not just about a race to build the most powerful AI anymore. It's about making sure these systems are fair, that we can understand how they make decisions, that someone is held accountable when they go wrong, and that they respect our privacy. At the end of the day, the genie is well and truly out of the bottle. AI is here, and it's not going back. This tech is already changing our world in real time. So the question is no longer if we should build it. The real question, the one that matters for all of us, is how we build it responsibly.